Starting us off for the latter half of the afternoon, we have Adrienne Ivey. Adrienne is passionate about agriculture. She ranches with her husband and children in East Central Saskatchewan. Adrienne is committed to sharing both her farm story and the industry story with people who have questions about where their food comes from. Adrienne is a TED Talk speaker, as well as a blogger and writer, and it is our privilege here this afternoon to welcome Adrienne to Brandon, Manitoba.
Thank you.
Would you like a glass of water?
Oh, I'd love that. Hello, Manitoba! That was mediocre at best. I am so excited to be here today, even though I have to admit that I am an Edmonton Oiler fan. I gotta say your Jets are, yes, thank you, the one person. I gotta say your Jets are pretty cool to watch this year, so I'm enjoying some Manitoba hockey action. So a little bit about myself. I ranch near Ituna, Saskatchewan, with these hooligans. We have a cow-calf operation and a small feedlot and a small grain farm as well. And even though I grew up on a grain farm in northeast Saskatchewan and loved being a part of my family's farm, I had no idea just how much fun it was gonna be to get to farm with my own kids someday. Something that I'm really, really proud of. So a little bit about me. My husband and I met at university when I was growing up on the grain farm. As much as I love farming, I swore that I was never going to get married. I was never going to marry a farmer. And I would never even consider marrying a cow farmer. And then I fell in love, as the story goes. We started farming straight out of university, and I worked off-farm in corporate agriculture and really enjoyed that in the years of our personal farming struggle. We were of an age that we started farming just before BSE hit, and then which was immediately followed by the year of the frost in Saskatchewan in 2014. The year that we also happened to have gotten married, although if you ask my husband, he can never remember what year we got married, but if you ask him what year the frost is, it rolls right off of his tongue. But farming through those really difficult years taught us a lot about how to be better farmers. Who knew that cows can live a long time on canola silage after your whole canola crop freezes? It taught us that we could really live on love and invest all of our available dollars back into the farm. And I think that because of those lessons, we're a lot better off today. And I did not have my papers organized before I came up here, too busy chatting. So after we had our kids and our farm was growing exponentially, we made the decision for me to stay home full-time on the farm to help use my corporate experience to grow the farm on a full-time basis. And there was nothing more terrifying to me than that idea. For those of you who know me, know I'm very much an extrovert. I love people. And being home on the farm alone in Ituna sounded scary to me. But that is the glory of living in an era of an online age. I had the opportunity through social media to meet an entire community of farmers, as well as a very, very interesting community of other moms and parents and people like me. And it was through that community that I was able to see a glimpse of what the greater world saw food production looked like. And that little glimpse was terrifying to me because it was not a pretty picture that they were seeing at all. So before I really get started, Here's my handles. Feel free to tweet along, whatever floats your boat. Fear of food has become a billion-dollar industry. The sad fact of marketing is that fear sells. Words out of context sound scary, and they are used on a daily basis to manipulate our buying decisions. But why should we care? As farmers, as primary producers, why should this matter to us? What is the big deal? So I want you to just think for a second, close your eyes, and picture this billboard plastered all over New York City. For people who have lived in New York City their entire lives, have maybe never even left the city itself. Quick question, who here today has ever witnessed, either in person or on a video, a sheep being shorn? Pretty much all of you. So I'm really fortunate that one of our neighbors is a really cool sheep producer. They've got lots and lots of sheep. And so every year we would take the kids to go and watch the sheep shearers come, and got to see the whole process. And I gotta say, those professional shearers, they were able to get the wool off those sheep in record time, and most of the time they looked a lot better than my husband's face does after shaving. So we know that this is not even close to the reality of what shearing sheep looks like. Beyond the fact that obviously they're shorn for a reason. It's not just to harvest the wool, it's for the welfare of the sheep as well. The words factory farming have become on the tongue of every documentary and every scare tactic that's out there around food today. I love, sometimes just for fun, type in a Google image search of GMOs. And for some reason, these GMO activists love tomatoes. I don't know what it is about a tomato, but I mean, we certainly know that GMO technology has little to do with tomatoes, as there are no commercially available GMO tomatoes, and nothing to do with the human fetus inside of a tomato. That is a picture that was created to strike fear in people's hearts. And let's not even talk about the pesticides that go along with GMOs. Pesticide has become a word feared and so closely linked with cancer. The whole glyphosate debate right now just is one part of the larger chemophobia and people being scared of words that they don't understand. Mainstream companies have jumped on the non-GMO wagon. Hunts, no matter how far afield you look, you won't find a single genetically modified tomato among our vines. Well, here's a clue. You won't find them on any tomato vines because they're not commercially available. And as a beef rancher, this is one of my favorite topics of being misunderstood, is hormones and antibiotics. Because we all know that antibiotics aren't just something we use for animal welfare, but are things we inject directly into the meat. No. And my last and most favorite, cow farts are ruining the world. So where is all of this coming from? Do people just sit at home in their basements enjoying making random lies up? Well, unfortunately, sometimes. But for the most part, it's part of a bigger agenda. It's not necessarily about glyphosate, it's about the fact that glyphosates are sprayed on GMOs and that some groups have moral objections to GMOs. And it becomes a part of a larger activist cycle. it is no surprise to me that when you open up PETA's webpage, the people for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which I think should read People Who Care More About Animal Lives Than Human Lives, when you open up their webpage, you'll find some very sad puppy eyes right beside a donate button. $42 million is what they take in donations every year. Whole Foods, a food retail who loves themselves a label, we can thank them for gluten-free water, things like that. Annual earnings of almost $4 billion. And another personal favorite of mine, the Non-GMO Project. They call themselves a labeling and a verification company, but in reality, they're an activist organization. They have clearly stated that their main goal is to end all use of GMOs in agriculture. And also, they put their label on things like rock salt. Because, let's be honest, there's no genetically modified there's no genes modified within rock salt because there are no genes in rock salt. There is no DNA. Then there's Hollywood. I thought this picture might get a reaction. Come on, guys. Pamela Anderson, Suzanne Summers. Suzanne Summers, she's so determined about this. GMOs are the end of humanity. Natalie Portman's Eating Animals documentary. Has anybody seen this documentary? The sad part about documentaries is that when people hear the word documentary instead of film, they believe that it is a true story instead of just a story. One review of her documentary, it's not every film that prompts tears and the urge to vomit, and even nightmares, like Eating Animals does. And then there's our Canadian sweetheart, Ellen Page. Why are vegans made fun of while the inhumane factory farming process regards animals and the natural world merely as commodities to be exploited for profit? That is a whole lot of trigger words to fit into one little sentence. Inhumane, factory farm, natural, commodities, exploited, profit. She's kind of hit them all. That's kind of pretty good wordsmithing. I got to give her props for that. So there is good news in that, though. Work done by the Canadian Centre for Food Integrity saw that farmers are viewed as more trusted people than celebrities are. That is wonderful. That I could be seen as a more trusted food source for information than Gwyneth Paltrow is a very big relief to me. But there is something that celebrities have that farmers do not. For example, Katy Perry, 107 million followers. That number, even just as a small town girl, as a Saskatchewan girl, as a Canadian, that is an immense number. 107 million followers. To compare that, we're here at Ag Days today. Ag Days has under 4,000. And even more than that, Random Farmer, I will pick on my husband, 500. And the bigger part of that is that I can guarantee you that of the 528 followers that my husband has, maybe one more because one of you just followed him, every single one is probably egg-based. Katy Perry, on the other hand, when she is speaking to people about food production, not one of her followers probably has a touch point in agriculture. So there is another bright spot though. Something really amazing recently happened, something that I'm super excited about for agriculture. So up until recently, Kylie Jenner held the world record for most likes on an Instagram post. And it's just cool, like my kids are still on it. This is a relevant platform that bazillions of people are on every single day. And she posted a picture of her new baby and hit a world record of over 18 million likes. So this isn't how many people saw the picture. This is how many people took the time to stop scrolling, say, oh, that's cool, oh, cute, and hit like. Millions and millions more have actually seen the picture. It's a big number. But then this happened. An account was started with only one post, and it was the simple picture of an egg. And it broke the internet. It is the new world record holder with over 50 million likes. Blew Kylie Jenner out of the water, and it was a chance without going into a big argument or a big narrative for food and agriculture to be front of stage. Is it an end-all be-all? No, but it's a really cool moment. If I was an egg farmer, I would be shouting this from the rooftops. That egg with its, well, now 2 posts. After it broke the record, it posted a second post of it cracked, because it cracked the record. 8.6 million followers. Like that. So, I need all of your help for a second. I need you to all cross your fingers. I have a video for you, and we're gonna hope that it works.
In under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not 2 nuts, 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So, notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So, over the next minute, you'll see all of those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that, TED. Thanks.
Nope. Oh boy. Ivy guy. How do I get back there? This is not my laptop. Thank you. So that video really speaks to me, because when it comes to connecting with consumers, like when it comes to telling the true story of modern food production, it is not about a singular voice. It's about, we need to start a movement. And the good news is that I truly believe the movement has already started. For me, when I think I can pinpoint the moment when I joined this movement, and it started with a lone nut out there waving his arms, and for me, that lone nut was Andrew Campbell, the fresh air farmer from out in Ontario, when he started Farm 365. Yep, from Current. It doesn't like us today. Whenever you try to do a video and a presentation, I swear to goodness, it never goes well. But it's worth it. But anyways, when Andrew Campbell started Farm 365, it was an amazing idea. It was an amazing venture. What he did was he pledged to share a photo from his farm every single day for 365 days for the full year. And it went huge immediately, and then it also was met with an enormous and massive vegan activist backlash. And myself, as well as farmers from across Canada and even from across the world, took the time to jump into the fray. We flooded the Twitterverse with positive pictures of agriculture, specifically livestock, and it was a really good win at the end of the day. You can go to the, yep. So, I am proud to say that I am part of a movement, that there have been the lone nuts up there waving their hands and doing cool things, and many of us have had the opportunity to join in that movement and be the next followers. So along this journey of many years of sharing my farm story and connecting with consumers, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot of things that go really well, that work, and I've learned some things that don't. So that's what I want to spend some time talking with you guys about, the tips and tricks. First of all, it always works and needs to start with being myself. Being open about who I actually am has to be the first step. I'm a farmer, I'm a rancher, but first, I'm a mom. And I'm a regular mom. I'm not a perfect mom. I have a messy house. Our family life is organized chaos. And people connect with that. They connect with the struggle of getting your kids to all the places they need to go, with all the equipment that they need, and getting there on time, and how it's not always easy. I'm also the mom who cares deeply about the food that I put on my children's plates. It is so important to me that they are eating food that is healthy, nutritious, and most importantly, safe. And when I share those things with other moms, then all of a sudden we connect on an entirely different level. I asked Ag Twitter for pictures of the people who are putting beef on consumers' plates, so that I could share with them the faces of who is truly producing that beef that they're buying on the grocery store shelves. And I have to say, this slide is my absolute favorite. It fills me with such pride as a beef producer. It's important when I'm speaking with consumer groups that they understand that these are mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles, and they are people just like those buying the beef. When we allow people to see our true selves and also open ourselves up to learning more about them, that is when the real magic happens. The second success for me has been storytelling. Facts and figures are rarely compelling, but a well-told story can move the most difficult of people. Stories are why we stay up late to finish that novel, or why I binge-watched the latest season of Suits in an embarrassingly short amount of time. Well, the story and Harvey Specter, let's be honest. Stories have been the way for me to engage with people, especially people that I've already connected with based on our shared values, like those of being a parent. This is one of my favorite slides, and it's my favorite story to talk about. On this wintry day, myself, my husband, he's up at the front in the tractor, and my son, who was 6 at the time, trailed 600 cows across 7 miles to a different winter pasture. And it was the most beautiful, calm, serene day, and I will never forget a moment where I just sat there and thought, how lucky that this gets to be my life. That this is just a normal day. This isn't a special occasion. This is just my life. If only I could share this moment with the world. One thing that I've had to be very aware of is getting outside of the ag bubble. It's only natural that as farmers, our friends are farmers, our peers are farmers, our business associates are farmers, our neighbors are farmers. It's really hard for us to have opportunities to connect with people outside of that. But the thing is that people who work and live in agriculture don't need to hear about how awesome it is. We already know. For me and for many people, getting outside of that ag bubble is my most limiting factor of how much engagement I can create. It's one reason why social media has been a godsend to our industry. All of a sudden, geography no longer determines who your friend groups are. And beyond that, I've taken it a step further, and I've made it my mission to cultivate relationships outside of agriculture through those platforms. Specifically on Twitter and Instagram, I have sought out relationships to engage with nutritionists, chefs, sports people, and doctors. And the conversations that I've had with them have been amazing, not only from what I've been able to teach them about beef production, but also what I've learned from their perspective as well. Some of these relationships with people outside of agriculture have also led to really amazing opportunities to connect with a larger audience. This spring, I was invited down to Orlando, Florida to speak at the worldwide McDonald's Restaurant Convention. So this convention had over 15,000 attendees, and I got to spend the days speaking with restaurant owners and as well as all of the lead executives from McDonald's Worldwide, McDonald's Canada, and McDonald's US. And I gotta say, I can't even decide which group was more interesting to talk to, the restaurant owners knew very little about beef production. They were the ones who are literally serving what I produce to the people of the world, and they had no idea how it gets to be at their restaurant. But they were so excited to learn. They did not want to go into details, but they really just wanted to know, what is life like on a Canadian cattle ranch? Do you use horses? Do you wear a cowboy hat? What does it look like? How do your cows handle the winter? They just wanted a snapshot of life, of what it's like around our place. The McDonald's executives knew very much more about the processes behind beef production, but they wanted to know, how can McDonald's help share the stories of beef production with the world? We know that people don't understand this, and we want to help them understand. It was really, really an amazing opportunity, and it all came about because of a relationship that I had formed beforehand. I wrote a little blog post, and I mean little. I mean, this was a blog post that very few people even read, but it was a really meaningful one to me. It was a post about the day that I had failed as a cattle rancher. I lost a calf when we were calving, and it was my fault. And I talked about what that meant to me and how that day had gone. And it happened that a McDonald's executive read it. He must have been one of the 100 people that actually read that post. And he contacted me afterwards and asked if I could be in his wheelhouse of people he could bounce ideas off of. Heck yeah, of course. So one little moment of being vulnerable and sharing what I thought was a failure led to such amazing conversations. Excuse me. Another relationship that led to really cool things, through a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, I met a very urban millennial from downtown Regina. Now, don't get me wrong, Regina's not exactly a metropolis by many scales, but it was a downtown kind of gal who had rarely left the city, never been on a farm, and we happened to meet at a networking event, and she started following me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Turns out that she is the person who organizes TED Talks. And through her, she loved what I was doing, talking about agriculture and sharing the stories of our farm. And we had the opportunity, and she provided me the opportunity to give a TED Talk last spring, which was possibly the scariest thing I've ever done, and also maybe the most exciting. If you haven't seen it, please Google it, watch it, and share it with your friends. I would really appreciate that. But it's all about farming, beef production, and that here's why we deserve your trust. So I think what the bottom line is, when it comes to our farms, every single one of us understands that we are the caretakers of our land, we are the caretakers of our livestock, we are the caretakers of our livelihood. But what we are just starting to really get is that we need to be the caretakers of the consumer-farmer relationship. Nobody else is going to do that for us. When it comes to telling our stories, there is nobody who can tell it like we can. The grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greenest where you water it. And that really strikes a chord for me as a forage producer. Okay, one more video to try and see if it's going to work. So the point of me sharing this is that every post does not need to be pointed. It does not need to be argumentative. It does not even need to be educational. Sometimes it's simply about sharing a slice of our life on the farm with people outside of agriculture. And that is something that I'm really proud of these guys for having done.
I hear the sound of a gravel road. I feel the wheels of a Detroit steel taking me home. I see the house just up ahead. Same 2 and 1, my daddy's son will lie awake in bed and dream myself to sleep and pray my soul to keep. Heather by church, blue collar, still running through my veins. I was born small town, deep roots, but on these boots I wouldn't change a thing. It's how I was born and raised. Born and raised. I'll never leave this little town. The family, the memories, the roots that I put down. Know who I am, ain't gonna change. Might find a brand new melody, but the song remains the same. I'm proud of where I'm from, yeah, we're the lucky ones. Raptor by church, blue collar, still running through my veins. I was born small town, deep roots, but on these boots I wouldn't change a thing. It's how I was born and raised. Born and raised. It's how I was born and raised. Born and raised. It's how I was born and raised. I know the gravel road will always lead me home, somewhere that you didn't stop, points me to where you are. I know the gravel road will always lead me home, somewhere that you didn't stop, points me to where you are. Dirt by church, blue collar, still running through my veins. I was born small town, deep roots, but on these boots I wouldn't change a thing. It's how I was born and raised. Born and raised. Yes, how I was born and raised. Born and raised. I'll never leave this little town.
Thought it was. So I love that music video. Those are the Hunter brothers, small town boys from Shaunavon, Saskatchewan, who have embraced their family farm and are literally showing it to the world on their music video. I think that that is fantastic. It doesn't always have to be a teaching moment. Sometimes it's just sharing our lives, and that includes family suppers in the field. It includes moving cattle as a family. It includes the failures, like the one that I blogged about when I lost a calf. I think that those are some of the most important touch points that sometimes we forget about because they maybe don't look as engaging because they don't start an argument, but that's a good thing. Another thing that I have found that does not work well, and I hate even saying this, but science only sort of matters. And I say that knowing that in a room full of agricultural people, we live and die by science. We live and die by having science that is real and that works on our farms. But the reality is that science is complicated, even for those of us who understand it or are educated in it. Science rarely changes minds. When is the last time that you heard of an average mom settling in for the night with a hot bubble bath and a glass of wine and a stack of scientific peer-reviewed papers? It doesn't happen. Science is real, it's valuable, it's essential to our farms and the greater world, but it does very little in persuading people, and it is 100% boring. Leading with science rarely pulls somebody in. The truth is that people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. In every presentation that I've ever given, or every piece I've ever written, by far the most effective have been the pieces where I have taken everything that I want people to know, what I want them to get, and I throw it out the window. And instead, I focus on how I want people to feel. What do I want them to feel when they're done reading that post or seeing that video? I want them to feel how much I care, not only about my livestock and about our land, but I want them to feel about how much I care about the food that I'm producing. That for some, we may call it a commodity, but it's never far from our minds, as we are putting it on our own family's plates, that it is food that we are producing. So, with that being said, I got one more point here. A very important point. Another thing that doesn't work: farmer fighting. I have dealt with a lot of backlash in this course of this advocating journey that I've been on. I have been told horrible things by vegan activists, been called out on my ability to be a mother, and had death threats even against my children once. But by far, the one thing that keeps me up at night is backlash from other farmers. And as an entire industry, we need to stop the food fights. We need to start embracing that there are many ways of farming. That's okay. We can each make decisions for what's best for our own farm and let others do the same. And I come to that from a place of not having always been here. In my younger days, I will be the first to admit I was adamant that how I farmed was the right way, and if other people farm different, then they're just wrong. But the reality is that it takes many types of agriculture to feed a growing and diverse world. And we need to start accepting that of each other. And no different, it takes many voices to connect with a diverse world. And we don't need to all have the same message. We don't all need to have the same voice. But we need to be positive and respectful to each other, because when we don't, it causes more damage than any activist or any celebrity ever could. So, with all of that being said, I hope that each of you feels something now. I hope you feel like something needs to be done. I hope you feel like you have a voice. And that voice may be different for different things. Within my own household, we often like to joke that it's a good thing that I go out there and talk to consumers, because that is not my husband's forte. But he has a voice as well. It just happens to be different than mine. He's great at speaking with policymakers, politicians, people like that. And I like to speak directly to consumers, as well as others, but still, it's important that we embrace that. I feel like each of us finding our voice is the right thing to do. That's why I speak for my farm story, because it's the right thing for not only my farm, I certainly don't sell any more beef because of it, but it's the right thing for agriculture, and it's the right thing for my children who will hopefully also farm in the future. So, that being said, I am going to be around here for a while afterwards. Please feel free to come pick my brain, ask me some questions, and hope to meet some of you.
We have a couple of moments. If there are any questions from the crowd, we would have time to entertain a couple. Yeah.
How do you get followers, whatever, that aren't in agriculture? I've struggled with that because beef is the people like it.
Yeah. So
Repeat the question.
the question is, how do you gain followers who are outside of agriculture? And that is a great question because it is not easy to do. So the thing that has worked for me to some extent, I still would like to do more of it, but you need to go to them. You cannot wait for them to come to you. So start following, maybe it is athletes that you want to engage with to get that segment, or maybe it's nutritionists, or maybe it's moms, or whatever. Look up hashtags that are relevant to that group and start interacting with them. Ask questions, comment, share, and the more you engage with many of that segment, the more they'll start following you back.
Are there any other questions?
The Canada Food Guide was released today. So to be honest, I've been here, so I haven't had a chance to really go through it yet. But what I did look at, it's not as bad as I thought it might be, to be perfectly honest. It's never a bad thing when we are encouraging people to eat whole foods, cook your own meals, all that kind of good stuff. Even the visual of the plate that they have is half fruits and veggies, quarter protein, and then what's the other quarter? Is it carbs? I don't know. Whole grains, right. So, I mean, it's definitely not as bad as I thought. There's only one statement in there that I personally did not like, and that's that the protein segment, you should focus on plant-based protein. I mean, protein is protein as far as I'm concerned. All of it is very good for you. I just don't know why we need to be polarizing the food issue even more and making it more confusing. As the mother of a young athlete, it's so difficult for me to get enough protein into my growing son. And beef is a great thing, and meat of all types is a great way for me to do that. But story short, it's not as bad as I thought it might be.
We have time for one more if there is one. I have one.
Yeah.
And since I have the mic, I get to ask. Give us 3 points to take home with us about sharing our own stories and reaching out to consumers.
Okay, 3 points. So the first point would be, my most frequently asked question probably is, how do I get started? And that is a really simple answer of just start, which sounds silly, but is really not that difficult. Whether it is on social media, whether it is blogging, whether it is striking up a conversation with the person next to you in the grocery store lineup, it is really just about starting to ask questions and then open yourself up to answering questions that people have of you. So that's point one. Point two would be positive. There is so much negativity in this world. We don't need to add to it, and it doesn't reflect well on us when we do. There's lots of things out there that make me mad. I mean, some of those pictures that I showed you, they make me so mad. And it's so tempting to be a keyboard warrior and go on the warpath just insulting people or using profanity. And unfortunately, it just reflects poorly on us as agricultural people when we allow ourselves to vent online like that. So take a moment, have a breath, allow yourself to be mad, but then figure out a way to address things in a productive, positive way. And the third thing I would be is, good question. Just be open. Be open to experiences. All of these things really just have snowballed for me. It started with little things of writing a short little Twitter post when Twitter was only 140 characters, when it was just little Twitter. And it just blossomed from there. So when you allow yourself to be open to talking about your farm, you will be amazed at the people who will listen.
Thank you very much, Adrienne, for sharing your time with us today. Thank you, Internet, for working when we needed it.
Yes. Oh, the AV gods worked.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I know some of you will probably want to talk to Adrienne up behind the curtains on the concourse, so we will get her to meet you up there. But if you could just share your appreciation for Adrienne today, please. Good little thank you card.